All right, Natalie Dormer, your new series Picnic at Hanging Rock is based on a classic book by Joan Lindsay, which was adapted into a classic movie by Peter Weir, and now it's been
Mhm.
adapted into a hopefully soon to be classic limited series for Amazon. Uh, why tell this story again in 2018? Why does it have special relevance to the world that we live in today?
Because the original material is just so dense. Joan Lindsay's novel, which is actually under 200 pages, and there's so much subtext there that isn't really ever fully explored. And Peter Weir's movie, though we hold it reverent and obviously it has its place in cinephile history, doesn't explore a lot of that subtext and ensemble storyline as well. So what B. Christian did with our 6 hours at Picnic at Hanging Rock is really expand and flesh out that original novel in a way that it's been begging to since the 60s. And I think there's some lovely echoes that whether you're talking 1900 when the novel is set, or the 60s when Joan Lindsay wrote it, or now in 2016 post the Me Too movement, there are some universal and themes about gender parity and how the struggle has been won and also how the struggle is still being fought. So I find it highly relevant in that way.
And yeah, a lot of the series does deal with women who are very frustrated by some of the constraints that society has placed on them, especially at that time in the early 20th century. So,
Mm.
did you find those kinds of themes when you were playing this character of Hester Appleyard to be very relevant to you as an actress in 2018?
100%. Disturbingly so. But, you know, there's also, before I get ahead of myself, I would also like to say there are male characters. There are male storylines that also, as you say, uh, are about feeling repressed. There are a lot of themes of feeling an inability to be one's true self, be it sexually, emotionally, financially, regardless. So it's not specific to the female characters, but it is, as you say, a female-centric story. Hester Appleyard, who I play, is, I suppose, the parallel. What I find frightening is she's come to the new world. She's come to Australia with a set of values that is antiquated, that really does come from Victorian England, a draconian sort of stifled conservative society. And she believes that she is tutoring these young girls in Australia in a way that will give them an arsenal and will weaponize them for the realities of what their world is going to be. But what she doesn't realize is that the times are shifting, values are changing, and what she's therefore enforcing on them actually cripples them. And she's actually doing them a disservice and in an almost tyrannical way. It's sort of, you know, tough love gone wrong. And I think it's a very interesting time in this technological, fast-paced modern world that we live in now, that, yeah, it is relevant that maybe our older generations are trying to equip younger generations with how they should live, but they don't really have the vocabulary or the experience to know what it is to be young within the modern world, and therefore sometimes stunt the growth and the liberation of that natural evolution of process, to give the young people the ability to be free and expressive with the constraints and the terrors of this modern technological world. So that's a really long way of answering your question about what themes I thought were relevant. But yes, women in 1900 didn't have the vote. They had no right to own their own property. They were the property of their father or husband. Well, we're meant to have got that right now, and sorted that out. Areas of the world that haven't yet been able to win those battles. But in so many other ways, Picnic feels all too relevant. And so it is that dichotomy between the two that I responded to, certainly.
Now, you are a modern woman, although you often don't play
Yes.
one on TV. uh, Finding empathy with someone like that, who I'm guessing from your response to this question is so at odds with the way that you see the world, and so at odds with your own personality. How do you find empathy, and how do you find your way into a character like that?
That's a wonderful question. It was a lot harder than I thought it was. I mean, you have to no monster, when you play a monster, no monster believes they are a monster. And obviously we have some personalities in our modern current political world, that's, unless you're playing a psychopath, what you have to understand is when you play a character, they think they are doing good, or that their version of how they want the world to be is for the better of all. Hester Appleyard is carrying a lot of ghosts and demons. And as the 6 hours go on, we slowly peel back the layers and you see what she's running from. And to me, you know, she's been damaged, she's been traumatized, and her way of processing that is to become this persona. The beauty for me with Picnic at Hanging Rock was I really got to play two roles for the price of one. There is the tyrannical bully, as you're probably right to point out, headmistress. But there's also Hester, who is the girl, the young woman that she was back in London, that she is hiding and running from. And it is Hester who I locked onto, anchored onto for that, my justification and my motivation. And then as these beautiful 6 hours unfold, hopefully the audience see in 5 and 6, Hester sort of having a reckoning with herself and facing the construct of Appleyard that she created, and how unsavory a realization that is. But there was in answer to your question in a short form, there was a residue left behind by playing a bully. It is not an easy thing to do, to torment some of those younger actresses, especially our lovely Inez, who played Sarah at 11 years old. That is one of the hardest things I've had to do on set, definitely.
So what is it about this 6-episode format, as you said, that really benefits the story of Picnic at Hanging Rock? Did it appeal to you just as an actor, being able to explore this character and this story over the course of that 6 hours?
Well, sure, that's the beauty at the moment of the golden era of television, isn't it? You really can make 6-hour movies, and you can explore and take time with characterization in a way that you can't in a 2-hour movie. But beyond that, what Larissa Kondracki achieved as our director of the first 3 and our overall showrunner is a tone and a style that stylistically is so bold and unique that she really did, with our wonderful DPs, create a 6-hour movie in its production value as well to look at, which is a joy that you can do that in this day and age. The material is there, the ensemble cast. And one of the other reasons I wanted to do it, other than the quality of the writing, Beatrix Christian and Larissa Kondracki's vision for it, which was so strong, 200-page lookbook when I first arrived in Australia put in front of me, was also that I felt like Australia was doing something unprecedented and bold and brave. They were going, look, we can make prestige television too. I've shot it in and around Europe. Obviously, Americans lead the way. But it was something intrigued me that our wonderful producer, Jo Wright, she had managed to persuade the estate of Joan Lindsay to have the rights to Picnic, because it's like their Great Gatsby, or, you know, their Bronte sisters. It's the gem in their crown. It's their national treasure. And that Joe Porter had managed to wrestle the rights of this national treasure to create this beautiful high production value TV show and prove that Australia can do it too. That intrigued me. And being part of the collaborative, as an alien coming in, to Australia for the first time, I liked the gumption. I loved the ambition. And I had a wonderful time, creative experience, collaboration with those women, with Jo Porter, Beatrix Christian, Larissa Kondracki. The four of us really hit, you know, four corners of a collaborative process. I felt very much embraced into that team, which I think also made it an especially special experience for me.
I wanted to follow up on something you mentioned before about the residue of playing a bully, and there are a lot of really tough scenes that you have to do in this series. So I wonder, how do you prepare for that? And you know, you mentioned your director, Larissa. How does she help you? What does she give you as a director to help you get into that place where you're able to perform these kinds of scenes that must be very difficult?
I mean, Larissa and I both truly believed in the humanity of Hester. You have to understand what the woman is trying to achieve by this tough love. Specific to the scene that I mentioned with you, with the young Sarah, with Inez, this is a young orphan that Hester identifies with. She, as we reveal, comes from not a dissimilar background, and therefore there is an identification with Sarah that Hester is struggling with. She looks at her and sees her younger self, but in a much more privileged situation, in a safe situation. So there's some envy there. There's some nostalgia. There's a sort of maternal love. It's complex, and this is what I always look for in a role, is contradiction, because I think we as humans are contradictory. We are not the one thing that we often say we are. It's the grey area that in drama we search for to explore. And when Larissa wrote to me offering me the role, and I had no intention of getting in a corset again. The last thing Natalie Dormer needed to do so quickly was get back in a corset. Though I was actively hoping that when I spoke to Larissa on FaceTime that we wouldn't have this profound connection that we did. But what, and the rest is history, because we did, and she was so inspiring. But what Larissa said to me is, I need an actor that can be vulnerable in 1 minute and tyrannical in the next sentence, and be able to jump between the two. And I don't know if it was something that she'd seen in past performances, but it was a massive compliment for me. And she's unsteady on her, psychologically speaking, on her feet, Hester. She is haunted, literally. You know, we explore that visually in a very clever way. She's probably the least self-aware character I've ever played. She's determined and she's stubborn, but I wouldn't call her per se strong. She's deeply, deeply wounded and has gone about, she's sort of a eulogy to what happens to trauma, which has gone unchecked. So it was quite a dark place for me to go to. And you're quite right, by the end of the 3.5 months, I sort of found, I found myself, she's a tragic character. And a lot of talking to friends, listening to you know, happy music, a lot of yoga, and trying to wash her away, because there is a darkness. But the thing about Picnic is, it is this mishmash of genres. It has this gothic thriller element. It has a tragedy. There's some beautiful love stories in there. It's deeply funny in places, which I think the directors managed to pull out beautifully, with a nod to Yale Stone and Ruby Reese and some of the supporting actors. And Hester can be quite funny in places, sort of a gallows humor. So yeah, you look for the levity and to play that as and when you can, and the rest you just have to go there. I mean, you really just jump in and work out how you'll get out of it later.
Well, speaking of some of that darker material, you had to act alongside a lot of younger women and girls throughout the show. So what was it just like on set, just going through that whole process with them? Did you find yourself becoming like a maternal figure?
I don't know about maybe more, yeah, quasi-maternal, big sisterly,
Right.
hopefully not in a tyrannical way like Hester Appleyard. It was a joy to work amongst so many up-and-coming, burgeoning young actors and specifically actresses. Lily Sullivan, Samara Weaving, Ruby Reese, Madeleine Madden. These are names that I'm sure everyone will start to hear now. It's always a joy to watch the enthusiasm and the fresh-facedness, it's a lovely thing where you can give advice or guide slightly as and when, but I always waited for them to ask. I never imposed myself on them. My God, I would never do that. But I mean, I have benefited in my career by just, mainly shutting up and listening and watching. And they're all highly intelligent young women and cast, and the male actors as well, Gilbert Harrison and some other great ones, young up-and-comers. So it was just a joy to be with a young, utterly enthusiastic cast like that, mainly Australian. And this is their, this is their national story. This is their chance. This is the family spirit on Picnic was very, very strong, and was reminiscent to me of some other shows that you guys might have heard of that are have an ensemble feel of passion. I did feel like it was a Picnic really did feel like a family. We didn't have as much time, the density of material you can see from looking at it, 6 hours. So it was a bit of a kickball, lick and scramble in some places. So everyone really did have to give their all, which even the young uns did, especially.
Well, before we go, speaking of ensembles and other shows that you may have done, you are a 2-time SAG Ensemble nominee for Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
2 questions. Number 1, what did that recognition mean for you? And number 2, since that show's about to wrap up, and I'm guessing you might not be coming back, given what happened to your character, to have been a part of a show that not only was very groundbreaking from a technological standpoint, but also has had the kind of impact that it had on audiences. What does that mean for you?
To me, it's just a gift to have been a part of that phenomenon. I don't use the word likely. I think most people would agree that GOT is a phenomenon, and we look in our industry textbooks and we look back at the revolution that has happened on the small screen in the last 10 to 5 years, and now the sheer amount of content. It is a very important time in our industry and the way people consume as well. And to be part of such a zeitgeist show that touched so many people's lives for a plethora of reasons, I will always be incredibly grateful for. And I bookended it perfectly. I watched season 1 as a fan, a pure fan, auditioned for season 2, had the most incredible 5-year run, and now get to watch the last 2 seasons again, like you, as a fan. And that just couldn't be a richer gift in my career I could not have hoped for, and consider myself part of that family. And I love watching as people go off, as they die within the show, watching where their careers take them, the moves they make, and the ones that are still there that are finishing the story for us. It will be a beautiful thing. And I received my invitation for the wrap party very recently. So the mind boggles at what it would be like having all those actors from the 8 seasons who can make it in one room together. It really is a unique, special thing.
Well, Natalie Dormer, thank you so much. It's great seeing you outside of a corset. I
intend for you to see me like that more often, I promise.
Congratulations on another great show. Appreciate your time. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Bye.